We are speaking with a legend in the conducting world on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Despotakis, and welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. We are going to be speaking in just a little bit with Anthony Maiello, a name you may know from the music world, especially in the conducting world. And he's going to share some of his stories from his life and some advice for music educators and music students as well. But before we do that, we want to show you a little bit of a video. Last month, right as the PMEA Leadership Summit concluded in Reading, Pennsylvania, volunteers who were part of that Leadership Summit participated in PMEA's fourth day of service. And we want to show you a little bit about what happened that day.
Came to the Reading Music Foundation for PMEA's Day of Service, and we have been inventorying instruments that have been donated to RMF through Project Replay, which is a community-based organization where they take instruments from the community so they can hopefully just turn them around and get them in the hands of kids in the community of Reading.
As part of PMEA's Leadership Summit held in Reading this July, PMEA members volunteered to help with music nonprofit organizations. From triaging instruments to sorting music, the few hours that PMEA members volunteered to help these organizations goes a long way, but also reminds all of us how music connects us.
So we do it, one, to give back to the community, but on the foundational philosophy that music affects everybody, whether it's somebody who performs, whether it's somebody who learns it. We all have music at some point in our lives, and it connects us, and it brings out the best in everybody. It builds a better society. So what better way, even without making music, how can we support our organizations within our community to better support our cause?
In addition to our volunteers here at the Reading Choral Society and the Reading Musical Foundation, several volunteers headed back to the PMEA office to help organize the music library. The music being sorted is part of PMEA's Lending Library, which is a collection of music available for PMEA members to use. Learn more about it and see what's in the library at pmea.net/lending library. PMEA's Day of Service is now in its fourth year of giving back to the communities we visit each summer. And this year we heard how the work of a nonprofit we helped students of a PMEA member.
I do teach in the Reading area, so I thought that this would be meaningful since we work, Exeter is a part of Berks County, and that's where I work, and RMF has done a lot for this community, so many thousands and thousands of dollars of scholarships and instruments, so it's a no-brainer to give back to an organization that gives so much to this community.
All right, and with us now is Anthony Maiello, who we're going to learn a lot about him, but you may have heard this name, professor at George Mason, name out there, very well known in the conducting world, has done a lot of clinics and is really kind of a fierce advocate and champion for music and music education. So I'm delighted to have him here. Tony, thanks for joining us.
I am thrilled to be here, sir. It is my pleasure, and I look forward to sharing whatever I can with you and those who view the podcast regarding music, regarding teaching, regarding life. Whatever I can do, I'll be the first one to tell you, raise my hand, that I still have so much to learn, as we all do. But and one of the joys of teaching and being with others who love music and just enjoy life in general, we learn from each other in this life. And I mean, if we watch a small child in the very beginning, we learn how to become a parent because there are no lessons really. I mean, there are some books and whatnot, but everyone's different. So it's a learning situation, and I love to learn.
Well, fantastic. I listened to some interviews and read some things about you, and that certainly comes through in what you speak about. So we're really looking forward to you sharing some wisdom with us today. But let's start and kind of back up a little bit, and let's you've had this incredible career. I mean, I could start listing things that you've done, and it would take the whole half hour of the podcast probably. I will say one of them that I thought was really cool, especially as we're here in the time of the Olympics, that you conducted during the Lake Placid Games, which is just mind blowing to me. But I want to hear from you. Like, what are some of the highlights for you? Maybe even going back to how you started in music, to your education, conducting, composing. Whatever. What have been some of the big moments for you?
Well, I was very lucky. I I I came through the back door. My dad passed away when I was in junior high school. My mom was a waitress, and she would come home at the end of the day with not even a dollar bill in her pocket, just some change. And so, I mean, I'm lucky to be, I'm so fortunate, blessed, and lucky to be talking to you today and to those who view this podcast. But being an Italian kid from New York, upstate New York, I learned to play the accordion. I heard the big deal was back then, we would sit down at the TV and watch in black and white the Lawrence Welk show. And I saw this accordion and Myron Florin and Lawrence Welk. And the next thing I know, I was in fourth grade and got up on Christmas morning, and underneath the Christmas tree was a little 12 bass accordion. And that's how it all started. But you and I both know that accordion basically is not um, it's not a legitimate instrument, but back in those days when I went to school at Ithaca College, it was not a major instrument, and it was not recognized as a major instrument. So I was just very, very fortunate to get into school. Basically, my high school theory teacher, Dr. Robert Campbell, and I owe Dr. Campbell everything. He was the one who made the phone call. I had graduated from high school. I had about 12 accordion students, and I had a little band, a four-piece band. We played in bars, weddings, bar mitzvahs, and so forth and so on. And that's basically what I was going to do. And it was the middle of July after I graduated from high school. Phone rings, and my mom picks up. She says, "It's Dr. Campbell. He wants to talk to you." And my first reaction was, "Uh-oh, what did I do wrong?" And so I go to the phone. He said, "Tony, I want you to come down to my office tomorrow." Oh boy. So I went down to his office, and he said, "Have a seat." I sat down, and I loved Dr. Campbell. He was wonderful. He was a captain in the Army, but he had the greatest heart. Choral teacher and an esteemed graduate of Ithaca College. Sat down. "So what are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, I have a little band. That's so and so." He said, "That's it?" I sat there. So he turns around, picks up the phone, calls the dean at Ithaca College, hangs up the phone. He says, "You have a meeting with the dean next week, 1 o'clock, Tuesday. Be there." So when Dr. Campbell says be there, I said, "Sir, yes, got it." So I pack up my accordion and I go down to Ithaca College, 5 hours away, walk into the dean's office with my accordion because I'm ignorant. Ignorance is not a bad word, it just means you don't know. And so I walk in, put down the accordion, and Dr. McHenry says to me, "So," he said, "Dr. Campbell called about you," and da-da-da-da-da, and so forth, and welcome. "What instrument do you play?" And I said, "I play the accordion." He looks at me, he says, "No, what instrument do you play?" And I said, I play the accordion, Dr. McHenry. Said, "No, no, no, no. What instrument will you play if we let you come to school here for a year?" I sat there. True story. He said to me, "Do you like bands or choirs?" I said, "Well, I like bands." I said, I back in seventh grade, I took saxophone lessons for a year, but that's about it." He looked at me and he said, "You go home and you buy a clarinet, and we'll give you 1 year here. If you do well, we'll let you stay. If you don't do well, you're gone." So I thought, whoa, wow. So I drive back home and I said to my mom, "Hey, I can go to school. I can go to Ithaca College." She said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I have to buy a clarinet." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because the dean said so." So I go out and I buy, are you ready? A plastic Bundy clarinet for $20. Once again, I took 6 or 7, maybe 7 lessons as a clarinet major. And I went to Ithaca College. Well, to make a long story short, Walter Beeler back then, Walter Beeler, crew cut, and little mustache. And oh my God. Walk in for the audition to placement in the bands. Walk in, had my clarinet, and before that, I heard other clarinet players. I heard one clarinet, and I turned. I thought it was a harp because the clarinet, the arpeggios were so. And I heard I'm going with one finger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but at any rate, I share this story with you because, how badly do you want something? How badly do we want something in this life? And how hard are you willing to work for it? So Walter Beeler, I walked in my clarinet. Walter Beeler says, A flat scale. Sorry, Mr. Beeler, I don't know that. F sharp. Forgive me on the. Sorry, Mr. Beeler, I don't know that. He goes, C major. Well, I had a hard time playing C major because it was over the break, and I still had. So I couldn't play any of the scales. So I said, "Let me hear your solo." And I wasn't going to go do, no. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a solo." He says, "Let me hear you. Let me see your sight read." Well, he put the. I think there were so many notes. I think it was the transcription of the Marriage of Figaro band transcription. So by now I'm holding the tears back. So I said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Beeler, I can't do that." He looks at me and he just like this. He says, "What the hell can you do?" And I said, "Well, I know my theory real well. I've had 2 years, French, German, augmented 6 chords, 4-part dictation, so forth and so on." He said, "Put your horn in the case and leave." So I'm walking back to the door and tears coming out of my eyes. I call my mother, and my mother says, I said, I can't do this, She said, "If your father were alive today, he would be so disappointed in you." I thought, oh my. At any rate, Elsa Ludwig took me into the palms of her hands, and she just took care of me. Charlie Bay after that. And I just practiced 5-6 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't go out on a date till basically the end of my senior year. And that date is, by the way, she's sitting downstairs now. So that was good. But so that's basically the story. And I practiced. I should share one thing with you. So auditions were posted, and I was smart enough not to even look at the top band. So there were 3 bands at Ithaca College at the time. There was the concert band, Mr. Beeler's fine band, the repertory band, and then there was a training band. The students called it the trash band. Yikes. But anyway, I wound up being third clarinet, last chair. The whole school. There were non-music majors ahead of me. And so, so I just rolled up my sleeves, and I have to admit, though, I'd lie in bed. It's a good thing we had freshman year, we had single rooms, no roommate. Well, I would lay there and the tears rolled down my face. I didn't know if I could do this or not. At any rate, practice. So we were in rehearsal one day, and this is now it's the second semester practicing. And the clarinet, this is still in the low band, the lower band. Conductor stops, and he's because the clarinets were not doing well. He said, "Anybody want a challenge?" Raise my hand. I've got nowhere to go but up. There's nobody below me. Stand up in front of the band. Stand up in front of your chair. The whole band, everybody's there. Let me hear the following scales: F sharp, G, and A flat, and you had to play it. Do re, mi, fa in the sequence. Up a half step, F sharp, same thing. I had been practicing those things. So I got in F sharp, started in G, said stop. He said, "Let me hear your solo." And the only thing I could think of, I was just playing. I was practicing the Stamets, the B flat. I'll never forget the Stamets B flat. And I just started playing a couple bars, and he said to me, "Sit down." I sat back down. And then out of a clear blue sky, there were 5 people ahead of me. I was number 6. The guy on the very end, the first chair, third clarinet, I'll never forget, his name was John, and he was a wonderful guy. Conductor said to him, "John, stand up." John didn't even raise his hand. Let me hear the following. Well, to make a long story, John didn't do so well. Maiello, up. First chair, third. John, down the step. And everybody moved their butts down the step, down the chair until they got to. And I thought to myself, so this is how it goes. And so I just kept practicing and practicing. And I made the top band in 2 years. I was able to play in Mr. Beeler's top band. And by the time I finished as a senior, I was principal chair, second clarinet. Never made it to first clarinet, but we had 6 clarinets in the third, 5, 6 clarinets in the second section, and we had 4 clarinets in the first section. And so, but it was thanks to it was thank you to teachers, Elsa Ludwig, Charlie Bay, and my colleagues at Phi Mu Alpha. They were my brothers at Phi Mu Alpha, and the music fraternity supported me. And I did play the accordion up in Cornell University. It's a nearby school every weekend. And I would send the money home to my mom, and she would save it. And that and my college loan, we would pay for things. I share that with you because, and it's not poor me, it's thank you me. I appreciate the opportunity to work hard. And so that's it. Didn't mean to ramble on.
No, that's a wonderful story and a wonderful way for people to think, like, look at the position that you were in and where you are now. So before we kind of move on to other topics, I'm just curious, can you share, since we are in Olympics time, what this experience was like at Lake Placid?
It was wonderful. Cold, very cold,
Yeah.
outside near a frozen lake. I don't know why. Anyway,
I'm wondering if intonation was an issue that night.
Oh, yeah. What do you think? Yeah. What intonation?
Right.
Yeah. So at any rate, I had 2 other colleagues, Becky Koval and Alan Roy. We were the 3 people. We rotated. We learned all the national anthems from the Navy band. They sent almost 300 national anthems. So we learned them. We had 3 bands from students from the Crane School of Music in Potsdam, New York, SUNY Potsdam, and we practiced forever. It was live. Now you hear the recordings for the gold medals, and they're recorded. Well, live, outside, conducted at night. Okay. Well, at any rate, I was the first one up, and my other 2 conductors, Alan and Becky, they're on the side because they're going to be, one of them's going to be tomorrow night, and the other the next night, and then I'm up the 4th night. And for 2 weeks because we couldn't do it every night. So at any rate, I get up, and this is a true story. And we had other, and they give us the numbers like who was it? Whatever country, it was 72, 143. That was another country, and they were all numbered. And we just bing, bing. We had them all lined up. So I can't even remember what the first country was, quite frankly. But it was cold as can be. So I'm out there and got my baton. This is a Ponzo book. My baton ready and so forth. And the guy's over there on ABC Worldwide Sports. ABC Worldwide Sports. Worldwide Sports. And he's got the mic, things like that. And he we talked about it. He goes, when I go like that, you play. That's it. I could hear nothing. I didn't have earphones or anything. So I'm looking at him, and the students are all looking at me. This is a true story. What live? So he get ready, and he goes, got the earphones, and he goes like this. And he goes, go. Okay. So as I saw him, he threw the signal, and so I'm like this. And as I give the downbeat, I just happened to look over to him, and he's going like this. No. And so here was my downbeat, believe it or not. No. Nobody played a note. Thank you, God.
Yeah, right.
Nobody played a note. My heart was going like this, and he's like this, and students. True story. So I'm just ready, and so and then he goes now. So I went, Really? No. So I give the number. So afterward, after the whole thing was over, I said, sir, please come here. When you go like this and I go like this, I can't erase anything. And so I'm sorry. And I said, you know what? That's not going to be good enough. At any rate, I'll never forget that. And then another time, just a quick story. I was conducting for one of the nights and so on. All of a sudden I'm getting smelling something's burning. And in the back of the third clinic section, some kid standing up, his boot caught on fire because they had heaters.
Oh,
He's beating the boot with his hand. Oh Lord! And then the third night it snowed. So we had the wind, would blow, and we had black plexiglass this thick over the music on my scores and the students' music as well, because the wind was blowing, it would blow the music right up. And so I'm conducting with one hand, and this is where I learned to conduct with the left hand independence. I'm conducting with one hand and wiping off the snow from
oh
the
my goodness.
plexiglass. It's true story. True story.
Wow.
At any
So,
rate,
so I'm guessing then as you watch the Olympics now, it's
Oh.
obviously a completely different experience
Oh,
for
God.
those musicians. Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
That's great. That's great. So one of the things that I could tell from, you telling your story of kind of how you got into this is that you have this, you believe in the value of the arts. And I've heard you talk about it's not just music, but all of the arts. Maybe this is a silly question, but
There are no silly questions. The only ones are the ones that you don't ask. And I tell my students that all the time.
well, that's a great way to think about it, especially with your concept of lifelong learning. So what keeps you energized to continue to be such an advocate for the arts?
When I hear music or when I see dancers or when I look at a painting, or, you name it, or a work of art, sometimes I have to hold back the tears. It touches my heart, it touches my soul, it touches my mind, it touches me as a human being. And we, if we're going to be considerate of others and sensitive and open to others in this world and to help others, I think art forms are the answer. And I truly, truly believe that. So as musicians, when we play a song or when I play a song on my accordion for someone, and I like to do that whenever I can, or we go to a show, or we go to an exhibit and we look at something and it takes our breath away, and we step back and and there are no words. There are no words. So we turn to art and to inner expression of others, and we learn from that, because that's where art, in my opinion, takes over when words end. I mean, we can read books and we can listen to all kinds of things, but when we have that human expression in an art form, no matter what it is, I think that makes an impression on us as human beings like nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly couldn't agree more there. You've also talked a bit about just how I think how you connect with people, but certainly how you connect with students, and just the way you've talked about learning and how people ask questions. So we have a lot of educators who tune into this podcast. So I'm wondering if you have some advice for them on ways that for them to find ways to best connect with their students, because you seem to be very good at this.
Well, way back before the earth cooled, when I started teaching, I'm teasing. This is 60 years of teaching for me, and have they been perfect? Is anything perfect when we do things? No, of course not. But 60 years of teaching. One of the things that I did, and this was back many, 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 many years ago, I started actually teaching in 1964. But back then, when one of the things I would do after dinner, I'd get on the phone and I'd call a parent and I'd say, "Hi, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Jones, whatever. This is Tony Maiello. I'm your daughter's clarinet teacher. I just wanted to tell you, I just take a minute or so. I really enjoy teaching your daughter. She's wonderful, and so forth. And I just wanted to say I appreciate your support for her, and just let you know that it is a pleasure. Oh, and by the way, when she practices, make sure she keeps her chin down. Thanks. Have a good night." And if it was a brass player, I'd say, make sure he doesn't puff his cheeks or, but you know what I mean? And, but I mean, I would take maybe 10, 15 minutes after dinner and get on the phone because that's all we had back then. And I had the phone numbers and I'd call parents. And I always said to students, and even with my college, especially with my college students, they have my phone number, personal cell. And I keep it on my bedstand right next to my bed at night, my nightstand. They have my personal cell phone 24/7. And I tell them, I will never, never interrupt your life. I will never bother you. You need me, you pick up the phone. I don't care what time it is. I will get in the car. I will come get you. No questions and bring you wherever you need to go. And they know that. And I've had students that have been from, one was out of the country, out of town, so forth, had to have surgery. I would visit them in the hospital, and or some even afterwards recovery. I had some students stay at my home. We had an extra bedroom until they were well enough, you know. And so I truly believe that if we can't help each other in this world, you really have to wonder why we're here.
Yeah. And kind of especially in education. That's
Oh, indeed,
yeah.
especially in education, right? Yeah. When you're a teacher, when we are teachers 24/7. I'd see parents in the grocery store, up in Malone where I was teaching in Bird Hills, public school. And we'd be in the grocery store and I'd say, "Hello, how are you?" Very quickly, great job. But I always say, make sure that Sally taps her foot, just, whatever the case, just a couple.
Right.
And then the kids would be playing at home and they'd say, "Sally tapped her foot." Oh, how did she? I used to love
Love
it.
that.
Yeah.
Great way to sneak it in there. I love that.
Well, yeah, that kind of thing. But I truly, being a teacher was a joy for me. It was an absolute joy. And my degrees are in music education, not conducting. Back then, I wanted to have it. Back then, there was no graduate conducting degree. So my graduate degree is in multiple woodwinds because I played clarinet, but then graduate was flute, oboe, bassoon, saxophone, and I got a lesson on each of those every week. 4 lessons a week. Oh, I mean, it was fun. But when I saw Leonard Bernstein in the little people's concerts, I was mesmerized. I didn't know why, but I couldn't believe it.
Right. That was your thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's also probably a lot of students listening to this, young musicians that want a career in music, perhaps in performance, perhaps in education, perhaps just in music, and they don't know exactly what yet. What advice might you have for young musicians out there as they're wanting to enter this world of music?
Well, once again, I tell all of my students at the university at both Potsdam, and I was so blessed to teach at the Crane School of Music in Potsdam, New York, and then at George Mason University as a college professor in both places. I mean, it's only by the grace of God am I here talking to you today. Trust me. But work hard. So I have 4 things that I tell every class I teach. Number 1, work hard, study hard, work hard. It's the same thing. If you're a student, your job is to study and to work hard. And when you get out, your job is to continue to study and learn and to work hard. That's number 1. And number 2, make smart decisions in your personal life and your professional life because they are connected. Okay, that's number 2. In other words, if your personal life is whatever, then it's going to be pretty difficult for your professional life to be in line. And if your professional life is out of whack, then your personal life is not going to be so good. Quick story on that, and I mean a quick story. I was out guest conducting every weekend in Potsdam, drive to Syracuse, jump on the airplane, go wherever, come back, so forth. Next weekend, go down to Syracuse, jump on the airplane. Next weekend, drive to such and such and so forth. So I walked in on a Sunday night, had my so forth, and my wife was standing there with the two little girls, and she said to me, "Before you go any further, I want to introduce you to your daughters." I started to cry. And I said, she said, "We have to have a chat." I said, "Yes, we do." So I say that, in other words, balance. Balance is so important in this life. And when something gets out of whack, so make smart decisions in your personal life and your professional life because they are combined. Number 3, be around good people who are also good musicians because you're going to learn. But be around good people. If I don't hang around bars after concerts because then everybody's a critic and whatever. So, but I always pass. I'm late. That's late. I gotta get whatever. But because somebody has a drink. Oh well, did you hear the intonation? You know what? No, thank you. That's just me. I mean, I love to be social. Don't get me wrong. But at any rate, be around good people who are also good musicians because you're going to learn. And number 4, this is a simple one. Help others whenever you can, because when we help others, we feel good about ourselves. And that's so, so true. For many years, and I still do serve as an auxiliary police officer in Fairfax County. And I enjoyed doing that. And the main reason was just to help others, those that couldn't help themselves. So I did that for a number of years. And now I'm what they call a VIPS, a volunteer in police service. Don't have to go on patrol or the things that we do as auxiliary police officers, but I can help out at the station, whatever officers need, and so on. And I truly believe that when we leave this life, and we will all leave this life, if there's any accountability, one of the first questions is not going to be, what kind of car did you drive? How much money did you have in the bank? Or how big was your house? I truly, in my heart, if there's any accountability, it's going to be, what did you do to help other folks? So I've been trying to live up to that as long as I can.
Yeah. And wonderful life lessons there for not only for students, but for all of us. And I can only imagine what an experience it would be to be in an ensemble that you're conducting, based on how you talk about connecting with people and the kindness that you share. So to those who have been lucky enough to have done that, I certainly envy them.
Can I share just one very quick story about student teaching? I was blessed to student teach under Frank Battisti. Frank Battisti was at Ithaca High School when I was at Ithaca College. And so I had the pleasure of student teaching under Frank Battisti. I walked into Mr. Battisti's office and I sat down. He said, "So you're Anthony Maiello?" And I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Battisti, I am." And Frank Battisti, after he left Ithaca College, he went to, I think, Baldwin Wallace, and then he went to New England Conservatory. Well known. I mean, and I believe he's still alive, and I try to stay in touch with him. But at any rate, I sat down and he said, "Well, welcome to Ithaca High School." And I said, "Thank you, sir." He said, "I'm glad to have you here." He said, "There's a clarinet section across the hall." I said, "Yes." He said, "Go take it." That was it. Clarinet sectional. And this was in the 1960s. So I got up to go and he said, "Mr. Maiello, one thing." "Yes, sir." He said, "Those students across the hall?" "Yes, sir." "They're only going to be as excited as you are. Do you understand me?" "Yes, sir." "Let me say it once again. I'll never forget it. Those students across the hall are only going to be as excited as you." And I said, "Got it. Go." So I walked across the hall. Guess what the clarinet players, it was a clarinet sectional, Guess what they were playing? The Hindemith Symphony for Band in high school. I was like, oh my. So I share that story with you. That's a lesson. So at any rate, we stay excited as long as we can in this life, excited to have whatever we love to do and to share it with others. I love to eat. I could eat this desk, but I choose not to. I love to eat. But when we have a meal and we eat it alone, as opposed to when we share it with someone else, it tastes so much better.
Yeah. Well, Tony, thanks for being with us and sharing so much with us today. I think there's lots of bits that musicians and non-musicians alike can take from this. So again, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good luck to everybody that watches. And feel free, if you want to give them my contact information, if they have a question, I am more than happy to respond. All they have to tell me is that they've watched the podcast. And if I can be of help, I'm happy. I'm still to this day learning, as we all are, and still playing my squeeze box whenever I.
Well, I love the lifelong learning thing. I'm a believer in that as well. So and thank you for graciously offering to offer assistance to anyone. Thanks for being here again.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And thank you all for joining us on this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, Zezwitz Music. We will see you next time.